Jacob Zuma, a prominent figure in South African politics, rose to prominence through his involvement in the anti-apartheid movement. He played a significant role in the African National Congress, and eventually became the President of South Africa in 2009, succeeding Thabo Mbeki. Zuma's political career was marked by both triumphs and tribulations, with his presidency characterized by a mix of economic progress, social unrest, and widespread corruption allegations. Evaluating Zuma's impact on South African society is crucial due to the profound implications of his leadership decisions on the nation's well-being. Despite some positive achievements during his tenure, such as the implementation of social welfare programs and infrastructure development projects, Zuma's presidency was overshadowed by controversy and challenges. These include allegations of corruption, declining economic indicators, and social divisions, prompting scrutiny of his overall effect on the welfare of South Africans. Zuma's leadership was marred by numerous corruption scandals that rocked South Africa and damaged public trust in the government. One of the most prominent cases was the state capture scandal, which involved allegations that Zuma and his associates colluded with wealthy businessmen to influence government decisions and secure lucrative contracts. The fallout from these scandals hindered the country's economic growth and diverted resources away from essential public services, contributing to widespread poverty and inequality. Economically, South Africa faced significant challenges during Zuma's presidency. Despite being classified as an upper-middle-income country, South Africa grappled with high levels of unemployment, particularly among the youth. According to statistics, the unemployment rate hovered around 25%, with youth unemployment reaching alarming levels of over 50%. Moreover, income inequality remained a persistent issue, with a large portion of the population living below the poverty line and struggling to access basic necessities such as healthcare, education, and housing. Socially, Zuma's leadership exacerbated existing tensions and divisions within South African society. Ethnic and political conflicts escalated, threatening social cohesion and stability. Additionally, concerns about government transparency and accountability grew as corruption allegations mounted, eroding public trust in democratic institutions. The lack of effective governance under Zuma's administration further fueled discontent and protests, underscoring the challenges faced by ordinary South Africans in realizing their aspirations for a better quality of life. Internationally, Zuma's tenure was marked by mixed perceptions of South Africa's role on the global stage. While the country continued to play a significant role in regional diplomacy and peacekeeping efforts, concerns about governance and corruption tarnished its reputation. South Africa's relations with key international partners were strained at times, reflecting broader uncertainties about the country's direction under Zuma's leadership. Jacob Zuma's presidency, spanning from 2009 to 2018, was marked by a series of economic policies aimed at addressing South Africa's persistent challenges. Zuma's economic agenda included initiatives such as the National Development Plan and the New Growth Path, which aimed to stimulate economic growth, reduce poverty, and tackle unemployment. However, despite these efforts, the socio-economic impact of Zuma's economic management remains a subject of intense debate and scrutiny. Poverty levels in South Africa remained stubbornly high under Zuma's leadership, with approximately a quarter of the population living below the national poverty line. Despite some progress in poverty alleviation efforts, particularly through social grants and welfare programs, the pace of poverty reduction was slow, and millions of South Africans continued to struggle to meet their basic needs. Income inequality also persisted as a major challenge during Zuma's presidency. South Africa consistently ranked among the most unequal societies globally, with a Gini coefficient well above 0.6. The gap between the wealthy elite and the majority of the population remained wide, exacerbating social tensions and undermining efforts to achieve inclusive growth and development. Access to basic services, including education, healthcare, and housing, remained uneven and inadequate for many South Africans during Zuma's tenure. While some progress was made in expanding access to services, particularly through the provision of social housing and the rollout of healthcare infrastructure, significant disparities persisted, particularly between urban and rural areas. Education outcomes remained poor, with high dropout rates and low levels of academic achievement, while healthcare services in many areas were plagued by inefficiency, corruption, and resource constraints. Critics argue that Zuma's economic management failed to address the structural challenges facing South Africa's economy effectively. Despite the implementation of various policies and initiatives, economic growth remained sluggish, and the country's unemployment, poverty, and inequality levels remained persistently high. Moreover, allegations of corruption and mismanagement within key state-owned enterprises, such as Eskom and SAA, further undermined confidence in the government's ability to deliver on its economic promises. The scale of corruption allegations against Zuma and his close circle is staggering. One of the most prominent cases involved the controversial arms deal in the late 1990s, where Zuma was accused of receiving kickbacks from arms manufacturers. While Zuma consistently denied any wrongdoing, the allegations persisted, contributing to a climate of mistrust and skepticism among the South African public. The impact of corruption on governance and public services cannot be overstated. Firstly, it has led to the erosion of public trust in government institutions. When citizens perceive that their leaders are enriching themselves through illicit means, it undermines the legitimacy of the entire political system. This erosion of trust can have long-lasting effects on social cohesion and political stability. Secondly, corruption results in the diversion of public funds away from essential services and infrastructure projects. Instead of being invested in healthcare, education, or infrastructure development, taxpayer money often ends up lining the pockets of corrupt officials and their cronies. This misallocation of resources perpetuates inequality and undermines efforts to address poverty and social exclusion. Furthermore, corruption hinders service delivery, particularly in marginalized communities. When resources are siphoned off through corrupt means, it limits the government's capacity to provide basic services such as clean water, sanitation, and electricity to those who need them most. This exacerbates existing inequalities and undermines the government's ability to fulfill its obligations to its citizens. The prevalence of corruption under Zuma's presidency also had significant implications for accountability and transparency. Despite mounting evidence of wrongdoing, Zuma and his allies often used their political influence to evade accountability and shield themselves from prosecution. Legal battles and inquiries into corruption allegations were frequently met with delays, obfuscation, and attempts to undermine the judicial process. This lack of accountability not only perpetuated a culture of impunity but also sent a signal that those in power were above the law. During Jacob Zuma's presidency in South Africa, his leadership style played a significant role in shaping the social fabric of the nation. Zuma was known for his populist approach, often appealing to the masses with promises of economic empowerment and social justice. However, his tenure was also marked by controversies and scandals that exacerbated existing ethnic and political tensions within the country. Zuma's leadership style was characterized by a mix of charisma and authoritarian tendencies. He often portrayed himself as a champion of the poor and marginalized, leveraging his humble origins to connect with ordinary South Africans. However, his populist rhetoric sometimes fueled divisions rather than fostering unity. His administration's policies, such as affirmative action programs and land redistribution initiatives, were intended to address historical injustices but often sparked heated debates and polarization along racial lines. Ethnic and political tension simmered under Zuma's presidency, exacerbated by his close ties to certain factions within the ruling African National Congress. Critics accused Zuma of favoring his allies and sidelining opponents within the party, leading to internal strife and power struggles. The ousting of key figures, such as former President Thabo Mbeki and the subsequent purging of Mbeki loyalists from government positions, deepened divisions within the ANC and threatened the party's unity. Zuma's leadership also had profound implications for political stability and democratic institutions in South Africa. His administration faced numerous corruption allegations and scandals, undermining public trust in government institutions. The perception of widespread corruption at the highest levels of government eroded confidence in the rule of law and the ability of democratic institutions to hold leaders accountable. Furthermore, Zuma's confrontational approach towards political opponents and the judiciary strained the country's democratic norms and institutions. His defiance of court orders and attempts to undermine the independence of the judiciary raised concerns about the erosion of constitutional principles and the rule of law. The prolonged legal battles and inquiries into corruption allegations against Zuma and his associates further destabilized the political landscape and diverted attention from pressing socio-economic challenges facing the country. During Jacob Zuma's presidency, South Africa's foreign policy approach underwent significant shifts, reflecting the country's evolving role on the global stage. Zuma's foreign policy was characterized by a commitment to promoting South-South cooperation, strengthening ties with other African nations, and advocating for the interests of developing countries in international forums. Under Zuma's leadership, South Africa continued to play a prominent role in regional organizations such as the African Union and the Southern African Development Community. Zuma emphasized the importance of African unity and solidarity, often championing initiatives aimed at addressing regional challenges such as conflict resolution, peacekeeping, and economic development. South Africa's international standing during Zuma's tenure was a mix of achievements and challenges. On one hand, the country maintained its status as a leading voice for the global South, advocating for issues such as fair trade, climate change mitigation, and global governance reform. South Africa also hosted major international events, including the 2010 FIFA World Cup, which showcased the country's ability to organize large-scale events and attract global attention. However, Zuma's presidency was also marked by controversies that had implications for South Africa's international reputation. Allegations of corruption and governance challenges at home raised concerns among foreign investors and international partners about the country's political stability and commitment to the rule of law. High-profile scandals, such as the controversy surrounding the Gupta family's influence over government decisions, tarnished South Africa's image and raised questions about the integrity of its institutions. The impact of these domestic challenges on South Africa's diplomatic relations varied depending on the country and the issue at hand. While some nations expressed solidarity and continued to engage with South Africa, others adopted a more cautious approach, wary of being associated with a government embroiled in controversy. The diplomatic fallout from these issues was particularly evident in South Africa's relations with traditional Western allies, where trust was strained due to concerns about governance and corruption. Despite these challenges, South Africa continued to pursue an active foreign policy agenda under Zuma's presidency. The country sought to diversify its international partnerships, forging closer ties with emerging powers such as China, India, and Brazil. South Africa also played a leading role in multilateral forums such as the BRICS grouping, where it collaborated with other developing nations to advance shared interests and priorities on the global stage. Despite the myriad challenges and controversies that characterized his presidency, Zuma's successors inherited a nation grappling with the legacy of his tenure. The challenges facing South Africa's new leadership are daunting, ranging from the need to restore public trust and confidence in government institutions, to implementing meaningful economic reforms that address unemployment, poverty, and inequality. Rebuilding trust in the government and strengthening democratic institutions will require concerted efforts to root out corruption, promote transparency, and uphold the rule of law. However, amidst these challenges, there are also prospects for positive change and progress. South Africa boasts a vibrant civil society, independent media, and a robust judiciary, all of which play critical roles in holding the government accountable and safeguarding democracy. Furthermore, the country is endowed with abundant natural resources, a diverse and resilient economy, and a young and dynamic population, which present opportunities for innovation, growth, and development. In conclusion, Jacob Zuma's presidency has left an indelible mark on South African politics and society, with far-reaching implications for the nation's well-being. While his legacy is marred by corruption, economic stagnation, and social unrest, it also serves as a reminder of the importance of strong institutions, transparent governance, and active citizen engagement in shaping the country's future. As South Africa navigates the challenges ahead, there is hope that with concerted efforts and effective leadership, the country can overcome its past struggles and realize its full potential as a prosperous and inclusive democracy. As South Africa looks to the future, it must confront the challenges inherited from Zuma's presidency and chart a path towards greater accountability, transparency, and inclusive development. Building a more inclusive and prosperous future will require concerted efforts to address corruption, strengthen democratic institutions, and promote social cohesion. By reflecting on the lessons of the past and taking decisive action, South Africa can overcome the legacy of Zuma's presidency and build a brighter, more equitable future for all its citizens. Thanks for watching. Please comment, like, share and subscribe.